Ever get the feeling like some music genres are, well, more like a whole cultural moment? Not just a sound, but a statement.
Yeah,
See,
totally.
that's what we're diving into today.
Punk rock. And let me tell you, the stuff you sent over, it's incredible. This is way more than just music history. It's about understanding how a few chords could spark a movement.
Punk was absolutely a cultural earthquake.
Right. So to really get it, we got to rewind back to the mid-70s. What was going on that made this the perfect time for punk to explode?
Okay, so picture this. Economic hardship, people are angry, disillusioned, the old ways weren't working, and there was this huge generation. They were just hungry for change. It was like a powder keg just waiting for a spark.
And punk was that spark.
Exactly.
And suddenly you got the Sex Pistols screaming, "Anarchy in the UK!" You've got the Clash with "God Save the Queen." This wasn't just music, it was a challenge.
It was a full-on rejection of everything that was considered acceptable, musically and socially.
Yeah.
Punk's raw sound, the DIY ethos, it was all a huge middle finger to the polished music industry. Yeah, it was like they were saying, you want polished, we'll give you raw energy, unfiltered.
Right. They were making their own rules, creating their own scene, their own sound, and that resonated.
It makes sense, though, right? If you're feeling powerless, this music, this movement, it gives you a way to own your voice.
It was empowering.
Totally. Okay, but it goes beyond the music itself, right? You can't talk about punk without talking about those iconic moments like when the Sex Pistols sailed down the Thames during the Queen's Jubilee. I mean, talk about a statement.
It was a deliberate provocation. They knew exactly what they were doing, and the fact that it got shut down by the police, well, that just played right into their hands. Punk was never just about the music. It was about challenging authority, disrupting the status quo.
It's crazy that a few chords and a ripped t-shirt could be seen as so dangerous.
Yeah.
But punk's message was about more than just rebellion, wasn't it? It became a powerful force for actual political movements.
Absolutely. Look at Rock Against Racism.
Oh.
That's punk in action, using their platform to fight against discrimination.
It was an outlet for real change.
It gave people a way to channel their anger about unemployment, inequality, police brutality, all these things that were directly affecting their lives.
It was about turning that anger into action.
And that's what's really interesting about punk. Even if you weren't a fan of the music, you couldn't help but feel the energy, that desire to be heard, to make a difference. It was much bigger than any single song or band. It was a catalyst for something much, much bigger.
We're back. And still unpacking punk rock. It's amazing how that raw energy, that DIY spirit, it didn't just fade out, you know?
It's incredible, right? Like that energy found new ways to express itself, especially as technology changed.
Yeah. I mean, we've gone from those photocopied zines to a whole online world. It's like punk traded the mosh pit for the internet. And
Yeah.
honestly, it might be an even bigger mosh pit now.
And more accessible too, right? Think about those zines. They were like early blogs, giving a voice to people who felt unheard.
That's so true. It wasn't just the music. It was about taking control of the message.
Exactly. It was about creating your own platforms, your own space. And bands weren't just handing their music over to big labels anymore. They were starting their own.
Right. They were like, we'll do it ourselves. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Independent labels like Discord Records, they became central to the movement. It created this incredible sense of community. And you know, it's funny because when we talk about punk's legacy, we can't forget about grunge, that raw sound, that rebellious spirit. You can hear echoes of punk in there.
Wait, hold on. Grunge. You're connecting, like, Nirvana to the Sex Pistols.
Well, musically, they're different beasts, for sure. But think about the attitude, the energy. Listen to Nirvana's Territorial Pissings, for example. That rawness, that rejection of authority, even the way the song is structured, it screams punk influence.
Okay, hear that. But grunge had a totally different look, a different sound.
Well,
How did punk influence that then?
it's about more than just the surface level, right? It's about attitude, the DIY ethos. Bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, they were all part of this movement that challenged the polished, overproduced sound of hair metal, just like punk had done years before.
So it's like punk gave grunge the blueprint for how to rebel.
In a way, yeah. It showed them that there was another way to do things, to create music on your own terms, to speak your truth, even if it made people uncomfortable. And that DIY ethos wasn't just about the music itself. It was about how it was made, how it was shared. Bands were creating their own labels, releasing their own records, connecting with fans directly. All stuff that's common now, but they were doing it way before the internet made it easy.
It's wild. They were like the original disruptors. But And this might sound weird, but with all this talk about staying true to yourself, about the DIY spirit, can a band even be successful without, selling out?
That's the big question, right? That tension between sticking to your principles and reaching a wider audience, it's something that's always been there in punk. Some bands, like The Clash, they managed to become hugely successful without compromising their message. Their music changed, they tried new things, but their core values, those stayed the same.
But for every Clash, there's a band that seemed to, lose their way a little, traded the ripped jeans for something a bit more commercial.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where that whole debate about selling out comes in. It's messy. Some bands saw success as a way to make their message louder, to reach more people. Others were worried about losing themselves in the process.
It's that classic dilemma. Can you change the system from the inside, or do you have to tear it down and start again?
Exactly. And punk, at its heart, was always about challenging everything, questioning the status quo. It's that energy, that questioning, that makes it so fascinating.
It was never about blindly following the rules. It was about starting the conversation.
Exactly. It's about asking those difficult questions even when there are no easy answers. And that brings us to an interesting point. We've talked about the past, about how punk has evolved. But what does it even mean to have that punk spirit today? Like in 2024, is that even possible?
Okay, so we're back, and our punk rock deep dive is about to hit the present.
Right. We've seen how it started, how it's evolved.
And now the question is, where do we see that punk energy, that DIY spirit, making waves today? Like in 2024, does it even still matter?
Oh, it absolutely matters. It might look different, but that spirit of challenging the norm, of creating your own path, that never goes out of style.
So true. So where are we seeing that punk ethos making a difference these days?
Well, for starters, look at environmental activism. There's a whole green revolution happening right now, and it's fueled by that same DIY energy. Groups like Extinction Rebellion, they're using direct action to bring attention to climate change. They're promoting sustainable living. They're even creating their own eco-friendly businesses.
So they've traded in the leather jackets for, like, hemp shirts, the dive bars for community gardens.
Exactly. It's still about rebellion, but it's about building a better future, not just tearing down the old one.
Which, honestly, is pretty punk rock when you think about it, challenging the system to create something new.
Exactly. And you see that same energy in other social movements, too. Remember Pussy Riot?
Oh, yeah.
That's a prime example of punk's message of defiance being used to challenge authority. But you don't have to stage a protest in a cathedral to be a part of that race. We see it everywhere. Movements for racial justice, for LGBTQ+ rights, for economic equality, they all tap into that same punk ethos. Organizing, speaking truth to power, refusing to be silenced.
It's like that old punk slogan, question everything, is basically the driving force behind so much activism today.
It totally is.
Right.
And the internet, that's become the ultimate punk rock tool. It lets activists connect with each other, organize, amplify their message in ways that wouldn't have been possible back in the day. It's like punk's DIY spirit has gone global.
It's true. Okay, so we've got eco-warriors, social justice movements. Any other unexpected places where punk is popping up?
Think about tech startups. That whole disrupt the industry mentality, the image of the underdog taking on the big guys, that's straight out of the punk playbook. These entrepreneurs, they're challenging the status quo, building something new, often with very little resources, but a ton of passion. Sounds familiar, right?
So, like, that guy who started Amazon in his garage? Secret punk rocker.
Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, that spirit of innovation, of believing in your vision even when no one else does, that's something punk helped create. It's about pushing boundaries, challenging assumptions, never settling.
Wow. I've got to say, this has been eye-opening. Punk wasn't just this blip on the music radar. It sparked a whole new way of thinking, a new way of doing things.
And that's what's so cool about it. Punk was never meant to be contained, to be easily defined. It was, and still is, this living, breathing thing that keeps evolving, inspiring new generations to shake things up.
This deep dive has been incredible. We started with a few power chords and a whole lot of attitude, and ended up exploring this massive cultural force that's still shaping the world today. It just goes to show you, music really can change the world. So to everyone listening, we hope this has sparked your own punk rock spirit. Go out there, question everything, make some noise, and never be afraid to be yourself. Until next time.